It began on a cold, moonless night when Alex Harper, a freelance journalist with a penchant for uncovering urban legends, arrived at the infamous Blackthorn Inn. Nestled deep within the misty Appalachian Mountains, the hotel had a reputation for being a magnet for the supernatural. Its crown jewel of terror? Room 333. Alex's career had thrived on exposing myths, but this assignment felt different. The stories surrounding Room 333 were more sinister, the testimonies eerily consistent. Guests reported chilling whispers, shadowy apparitions, and nights filled with unrelenting terror. Despite the warnings, Alex's curiosity outweighed any fear. The hotel's exterior loomed ahead, its Gothic facade weathered by time, as though it had absorbed centuries of despair. As Alex pushed open the heavy oak doors, the hotel's interior greeted him with an unsettling silence. The air was thick, carrying the faint aroma of mildew and something else, something metallic. His footsteps echoed ominously as he approached the reception desk where an elderly man with hollow eyes sat hunched. The brass nameplate read, "G. Eldridge." "You must be the journalist," Eldridge said, his voice a raspy whisper that seemed to scrape against Alex's nerves. "Room 333, I presume?" Alex nodded. The old man's lips curled into a wry smile, but his eyes revealed unease. Without another word, he slid a tarnished key across the counter. It was heavier than Alex expected, and engraved on its surface was the number 333 in ornate script. The hallway leading to room 333 felt endless. Dim sconces cast flickering shadows along the crimson walls, and the patterned carpet muffled Alex's steps. The air grew colder as he neared the door. A strange hum vibrated faintly in the distance, almost imperceptible but enough to raise the hairs on his neck. Standing before room 333, Alex paused. The door was unlike the others, darker and adorned with peculiar carvings that seemed to writhe in the low light. Taking a deep breath, he inserted the key. The lock clicked, and the door creaked open with a reluctant groan. The room was unremarkable at first glance. A simple bed, a worn armchair, and a desk sat under a single light fixture that buzzed intermittently. Yet, an oppressive feeling settled over Alex as he stepped inside, as if the air itself disapproved of his presence. Setting up his equipment, Alex decided to record a preliminary log. Day 1. The atmosphere in room 333 is peculiar. There's a heaviness here that I can't quite describe. No signs of paranormal activity yet, but the night is young. As he spoke, a faint scratching noise emerged from the far corner. He turned sharply, his flashlight illuminating the area. Nothing. The noise stopped, leaving behind an almost deafening silence. Alex chuckled nervously. "Mice," he muttered to himself. But deep down, he wasn't convinced. Hours passed, and fatigue began to set in. Alex reclined on the bed, flipping through his notes on the room's history. According to local lore, room 333 had been the scene of a gruesome murder decades ago. A woman named Eleanor Reed, a reclusive guest, had been found dead, her body contorted in unnatural angles. The cause of death was never determined, but witnesses claimed to hear her screams echo through the halls for weeks after. As Alex read, the temperature in the room plummeted. He could see his breath now, forming ghostly clouds in the frigid air. The buzzing light above flickered violently before plunging the room into darkness. "Perfect," Alex grumbled, grabbing his flashlight. But as he switched it on, the beam illuminated something that made his blood run cold. A figure stood at the foot of the bed. The figure was faint, almost translucent, but its form was unmistakable. A woman in a tattered dress, her head tilted unnaturally to one side. Her face was obscured by strands of matted hair, but Alex could feel her gaze piercing through him. "Eleanor," he whispered, his voice trembling. The figure didn't move. Instead, the scratching noise began again, louder this time, coming from all around. Alex swung the flashlight wildly, the beam catching glimpses of movement in the shadows. Panic surged through him as the walls seemed to close in. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the noises stopped. The figure vanished, leaving Alex alone in the suffocating silence. His heart pounded as he scrambled to his equipment, speaking into the recorder with a shaky voice. Something is here. This is no myth. I saw her. Eleanor Reed. Or what's left of her." Unable to sleep, Alex spent the rest of the night reviewing his footage. To his astonishment, the camera had captured fleeting glimpses of the figure, her form flickering like a dying flame. But more disturbing were the whispers that accompanied the footage. Faint but unmistakable. "Leave, now." As dawn broke, Alex stepped out of room 333, desperate for fresh air. The hallway felt different, the oppressive atmosphere lingering. He glanced back at the door, its carvings appearing more pronounced, almost alive. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Was he in over his head? Downstairs, Eldridge watched him with a knowing look. "Saw her, didn't you?" the old man asked. Alex hesitated before nodding. "What does she want?" Eldridge's expression darkened. Justice. Closure. Or perhaps simply revenge. Whatever it is, room 333 holds her pain, her rage. And now it holds you. Determined to uncover the truth, Alex resolved to spend another night in room 333. He needed answers, not just for his story but for himself. As he prepared to re-enter the room, he couldn't shake the feeling that something far worse awaited him. Something that would not let him leave so easily. The second night in room 333 began with a peculiar stillness, as if the air itself was bracing for what was to come. Alex closed the door behind him, his pulse quickening. Despite the terror of the previous night, an inexplicable compulsion drove him to return. Something about the room felt incomplete, like an unfinished sentence begging for resolution. He decided to set up additional cameras, ensuring every angle was covered. This time, no blind spots, he muttered, his voice an attempt to mask his unease. As he placed a camera near the desk, his hand brushed against the worn surface. He paused, noticing deep gouges carved into the wood. Not random scratches, but deliberate markings. Words. Names. Eleanor Reed. Chills raced down his spine as he traced the letters. Below her name were others, dozens of them, etched with the same desperate intensity. The final name, barely legible, read, David Cole. Alex sat down to research the names, using his laptop to scour online archives. The internet connection in the hotel was frustratingly slow, but persistence paid off. Each name belonged to a guest who had stayed in room 333 and disappeared. Their cases remained unsolved, shrouded in mystery. "What the hell is this place?" Alex whispered, his voice trembling. He barely had time to process the discovery before a loud bang echoed through the room. He jumped, spinning around to face the source. The wardrobe door stood ajar, its dark interior yawning like a mouth. Approaching cautiously, Alex aimed his flashlight into the wardrobe. It was empty, save for a faint outline of dust where something large had once been. Suddenly, the door slammed shut with a force that reverberated through the room. Alex stumbled back, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The temperature plummeted once more, the frost creeping along the edges of the mirror. The scratching noise returned, this time more frantic, as if something trapped was desperate to escape. It grew louder, converging at a single point. The bed. Alex knelt down, lifting the edge of the bedspread to peer underneath. A pair of hollow, unblinking eyes stared back at him. Alex scrambled away, his back hitting the wall. The figure emerged slowly, pulling itself out with grotesque movements. Its limbs bent at unnatural angles, and its face was wrong, twisted and incomplete, as though its features were fighting to form but failing. It spoke, its voice a guttural rasp that seemed to echo within Alex's skull. "Help me." The frigid touch of the figure's fingers sent shockwaves through Alex's body, freezing him in place. The room seemed to warp around him, the walls bending inward as if the hotel itself were alive and suffocating him. His breath came in ragged gasps, yet he couldn't pull away. The figure's voice, fragmented and otherworldly, echoed again. "Help me find the truth." As the words left its lips, Alex was suddenly engulfed in a torrent of visions. Blurred images flashed before his eyes, a blood-soaked floor, muffled screams, and a shadowy figure standing over a lifeless body. He felt Eleanor's anguish as though it were his own, her final moments playing out in disjointed fragments. When the vision subsided, Alex collapsed to the ground, trembling. The figure had vanished, but its plea lingered in the air. Shaking, he whispered to himself, "What truth? What does she want me to find?" Determined to uncover the mystery, Alex reviewed his footage from the previous night, hoping for clues. As he scrubbed through hours of recordings, something caught his eye. In one frame, a faint outline of the figure appeared near the desk, its hand resting on the gouged names. In another, it stood by the wardrobe, pointing toward the wall behind it. Alex froze the footage and zoomed in. The figure's gestures weren't random, they were deliberate, as if guiding him. He approached the wardrobe cautiously, his heart hammering in his chest. The air grew colder the closer he got, his breath condensing in front of him. With trembling hands, he pushed the wardrobe aside. The heavy wooden frame groaned as it scraped against the floor, revealing a section of the wall covered by peeling wallpaper. Beneath the tattered wallpaper, Alex uncovered a hidden compartment. Carved into the wall was a series of symbols, their intricate design pulsating faintly as if alive. Among the carvings was a small metal latch. Taking a deep breath, Alex pulled it. The wall panel creaked open, revealing a dark, narrow passageway. A wave of icy air hit him, carrying with it the unmistakable stench of decay. Summoning his courage, Alex grabbed his flashlight and ventured inside. The passage led to a hidden room, its walls lined with old photographs and documents. In the center of the room stood a small table, atop which lay a dusty journal. Alex flipped through its brittle pages, each entry more disturbing than the last. The journal belonged to David Cole, the last recorded guest of room 333 before its closure. His writings chronicled his descent into madness, describing shadowy figures, anguished screams, and a relentless presence he couldn't escape. The final entry was scrawled in frantic handwriting. "She won't let me leave. Eleanor demands justice. The truth lies beneath." Alex's mind raced. The truth lies beneath. Beneath what? He scanned the room, his eyes landing on a trapdoor partially hidden beneath a tattered rug. He hesitated but knew he couldn't turn back now. With great effort, he lifted the heavy trapdoor, revealing a stone staircase spiraling downward. The scent of damp earth and rot grew stronger with each step. At the bottom, Alex found himself in a cavernous space filled with old furniture, forgotten belongings, and bones. Human remains littered the floor, their placement almost ritualistic. In the center of the room lay a single coffin, its lid ajar. Alex's flashlight trembled as he illuminated the contents, Eleanor's remains, her skeletal hands clutching a blood-stained locket. As Alex reached for the locket, the room shook violently. The scratching noise returned, now deafening, accompanied by anguished wails that echoed through the chamber. The air grew thick, pressing against him like an invisible force. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, towering and malevolent. It wasn't Eleanor but something far more sinister, a guardian of the secrets buried here. Its eyes burned with hatred as it advanced toward Alex. Panicked, Alex grabbed the locket and shouted, "Eleanor! Is this what you wanted?" The shadow paused, its form flickering as if uncertain. The room seemed to hold its breath. From the locket, a soft glow emanated, growing brighter until Eleanor's apparition materialized before Alex. Her presence was no longer menacing but serene. She gazed at the shadow and whispered, "It's over. Release them." The shadow let out a guttural roar before dissolving into the ether. The wails ceased, replaced by a profound silence. Eleanor turned to Alex, her expression one of gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly, her form fading with the light of the locket. As she vanished, the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The remains in the room crumbled to dust, the cavern itself beginning to collapse. Alex scrambled up the stairs, barely escaping as the passageway sealed behind him. Back in room 333, Alex sat on the floor, clutching the locket. The room felt lighter, the air no longer suffocating. He knew he had uncovered the truth Eleanor sought, bringing her torment to an end. The next morning, as Alex checked out of the Blackthorn Inn, Eldridge watched him with a knowing smile. "You found it, didn't you?" the old man asked. Alex nodded, holding up the locket. "Eleanor's story is finished. But what about the others?" Eldridge's expression darkened. "The room will always hold echoes of the past. Be careful, Mr. Harper. Not every story has a happy ending." As Alex drove away from the hotel, he couldn't shake the feeling that his journey with room 333 wasn't truly over. The locket rested in his pocket, its weight a constant reminder of the secrets he had uncovered, and the ones that still lingered, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them. Days turned into weeks, but Alex couldn't escape the haunting memories of room 333. The locket seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, growing heavier each day. He kept it hidden in a drawer, but its presence loomed over him, infiltrating his dreams with whispers and visions of Eleanor's tragic life. In these dreams, Alex saw flashes of Eleanor's life, a young woman full of hope, caught in a web of deceit and betrayal. He witnessed her murder, not as a random act of violence, but as part of a sinister ritual. Each vision ended with Eleanor staring directly at him, her eyes pleading, as if asking for more than he had already done. One night, unable to bear the weight of the locket any longer, Alex decided to research its origins. His search led him to obscure forums and ancient texts about cursed objects. The locket, he learned, was more than a keepsake. It was an anchor for Eleanor's spirit, and potentially others. According to legend, objects like the locket were often tied to blood pacts or rituals. Destroying them could release trapped souls, but the process was perilous. If done incorrectly, it might unleash something far worse. Determined to put an end to the locket's hold over him, Alex contacted a historian and occult expert, Dr. Mara Blackwood. Upon seeing the locket, Dr. Blackwood's face paled. "This isn't just an ordinary haunting," she explained. "This locket binds not only Eleanor but all the souls connected to her death. To destroy it, we'll need to perform a ritual at the site of its origin." "You mean the Blackthorn Inn?" Alex said, dread creeping into his voice. Dr. Blackwood nodded. "Precisely. And we must do it before the locket's power consumes you completely." The following night, Alex and Dr. Blackwood arrived at the abandoned Blackthorn Inn. The inn had been closed indefinitely after Alex's last visit, the rumors of room 333 spreading like wildfire. Navigating the dark, decrepit halls, they returned to the room that started it all. The air inside was colder than Alex remembered, and the faint sound of scratching echoed through the walls. The locket seemed to vibrate in his pocket, almost as if alive. Dr. Blackwood set up the ritual, drawing a protective circle on the floor with salt and lighting candles at its edges. She placed the locket in the center and began chanting in an ancient tongue. At first, nothing happened. Then, the room erupted in chaos. Shadows poured from the walls, swirling around the locket. The temperature plummeted, and Alex felt an invisible force pressing down on him. "Keep your focus," Dr. Blackwood shouted over the cacophony. The shadows coalesced into figures. Eleanor and the others trapped by the locket. Their faces were twisted with anguish, their voices blending into a deafening chorus of cries. Dr. Blackwood continued the chant, her voice steady. The locket began to glow, cracks forming along its surface. The figures reached toward Alex, their hands clawing at the edge of the protective circle. One figure, a man with hollow eyes, spoke directly to Alex. "You can't save us all. Choose." Alex froze. The ritual required a sacrifice. Either the locket would be destroyed, releasing Eleanor's spirit but trapping the others, or he could channel its power to free everyone, risking his own life in the process. "Alex!" Dr. Blackwood's voice broke through his panic. "Decide now." With a deep breath, Alex stepped forward, out of the circle. "Take me," he said, his voice steady. "Let them go." The room fell silent. The figures stared at him, their expressions softening. The locket shattered, releasing a blinding light that engulfed the room. Alex felt a searing pain in his chest. Then, nothing. When Alex woke, he was lying in the middle of room 333. Dr. Blackwood knelt beside him, her face etched with worry. "You're alive," she whispered. The locket was gone, its pieces reduced to ash. The oppressive energy of the room had vanished, replaced by an eerie calm. Eleanor's spirit appeared one last time, her form radiant. "Thank you," she said softly. "You've set us free." As she disappeared, Alex felt a profound sense of peace. The burden was gone, and so were the whispers. Months later, Alex published an article about his experience, exposing the dark history of the Blackthorn Inn. The story garnered national attention, and the inn was eventually demolished. Alex kept a single reminder of his ordeal, a faint scar on his chest, shaped like the locket. It was a mark of his bravery and a symbol of the lives he had saved. But sometimes in the quiet of the night, he could still hear Eleanor's voice. Not a cry for help, but a gentle whisper of gratitude. Let me know if you'd like any changes or if this wraps it up perfectly. Months after the events at the Blackthorn Inn, Alex tried to move on with his life. He returned to writing, his article about the haunted locket making him a household name in the world of paranormal journalism. Despite the fame and recognition, Alex felt a lingering unease, something unresolved. The scar on his chest, shaped like the locket, occasionally burned, especially during quiet moments at night. At first, he dismissed it as a phantom sensation. a reminder of his harrowing ordeal. But soon, he began experiencing vivid dreams again. This time, however, they weren't of Eleanor or the Blackthorn Inn. Instead, they were of unfamiliar places, a dense forest, an ancient stone altar, and a swirling void filled with shadowy figures. One night, the burning intensified, waking Alex from a deep sleep. He stumbled to his desk and instinctively began sketching the scenes from his dreams. The images poured out of him, detailed landscapes, cryptic symbols, and faces he didn't recognize. Among them was an engraving of the locket, whole again, but with an additional symbol on its surface, a mark that hadn't been there before. He shared the sketches with Dr. Mara Blackwood. Upon seeing them, her expression darkened. These symbols, they're part of an ancient binding ritual. It seems the locket wasn't destroyed entirely. Its essence is still tied to you. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. What does that mean? It means your sacrifice worked, but the ritual wasn't complete, Dr. Blackwood explained. The locket's power is dormant inside you. If you don't neutralize it, it could awaken and wreak havoc again. Determined to end the curse for good, Alex and Dr. Blackwood sought the help of a reclusive mystic, Amara, who lived deep in the woods of northern Maine. Amara was known for her expertise in ancient rituals and was rumored to have dealt with artifacts similar to the locket. When Alex and Dr. Blackwood arrived, Amara examined the scar and the sketches. The locket's energy is bound to your life force, she said. To destroy it completely, we must conduct a cleansing ritual at its true origin, where the curse was first created. That wasn't the Blackthorn Inn? Alex asked, bewildered. Amara shook her head. The inn was merely a resting place. The true origin is much older. An ancient site hidden in the woods where the binding ritual was first performed. Guided by Amara, Alex and Dr. Blackwood ventured into the wilderness. The journey was treacherous, filled with strange occurrences, a sudden storm, disembodied whispers, and shadowy figures lurking just beyond their line of sight. It was as if the locket's essence was trying to stop them. After hours of trekking, they found the altar from Alex's dreams. It was a moss-covered stone circle, surrounded by trees twisted into unnatural shapes. The air was thick with a heavy, oppressive energy. Amara prepared the cleansing ritual, inscribing protective symbols on the ground and lighting sacred herbs. She handed Alex a ceremonial dagger. The power of the locket resides within you. To destroy it, you must sever the connection. Cut the scar. Alex hesitated, the weight of the moment bearing down on him. And if I don't survive? Amara's gaze was steady. You will, but only if your resolve is stronger than the locket's curse. As the ritual began, the forest came alive with eerie sounds. Shadows emerged, forming grotesque shapes that lunged at Alex and the others. Protected by the symbols, Amara and Dr. Blackwood chanted in unison, their voices rising above the chaos. Alex gripped the dagger, his hand trembling. The scar burned hotter than ever, as if the locket's essence was fighting back. Summoning every ounce of courage, he pressed the blade to the scar and made the cut. Pain shot through him, and a dark mist erupted from the wound, coiling into the air like a living entity. The mist screamed, a deafening sound that shook the ground. The protective circle glowed brighter, trapping the mist as Amara completed the chant. With a final ear-piercing shriek, the mist dissipated, and the oppressive energy lifted. The forest fell silent, bathed in an ethereal light. Alex collapsed to the ground, exhausted but alive. The scar on his chest was gone, replaced by smooth, unmarked skin. Amara smiled. It's over. The locket's power is no more. Back in civilization, Alex felt lighter, free from the burden that had haunted him for so long. His dreams returned to normal, and the whispering voices ceased. Yet, a part of him couldn't help but feel that the locket story was far from over. In the quiet moments of the night, Alex would sometimes catch a glimpse of Eleanor's face, not in anguish, but in quiet gratitude. It was a reminder of the lives he had touched, the battles he had fought, and the mysteries that still lay ahead.